Hey, I'm Nathan Baird from the Indy Star.
Sam King from the Journal and Courier.
We are here at Mackey Arena following a 94-84 Purdue loss to Wisconsin. Purdue started the week in first place in the Big Ten, two straight losses, knocks them back into a tie for technically third right now with the Badgers, who have now thrust themselves into this conversation. Obviously, today, in other Purdue losses this season, you would look at, Penn State game where like the turnovers killed them, and Marquette where the turnovers killed them. There were some other games where defensive rebounding was an issue and teams were getting too many second chance points. Neither of those things was like even slightly a problem today. This was just a team that came out and pumped the ball into the basket, and Purdue did very little to interrupt that.
And I didn't know this until Matt Painter had said after the game, 20 of 2 inside the arc. That is, I don't know if I've ever seen that in a game of this caliber.
It's like statistically impossible. I'm gonna look up and see like how often that's ever happened in a game in the last however many years. But let's not forget, Wisconsin was also shooting 12 of 30 from three, and that was with a 1 of 9 stretch at one point in the middle of the game because they started 4 of 6, and then they were 5 of 15, maybe at halftime, and then they just shot the crap out of the ball in the second half. I think they were 7 of 14 in the second half. So a day where Matt Painter came out of the Michigan game, a 2-point loss. And you always look in games like that about like, oh, a ball that gets to the rim and doesn't go in, some calls that don't go Purdue's way. He came out of that game in multiple instances, and I think he was even bringing it up on Friday when we talked to him about feeling like the defensive focus wasn't there. And if you think back, as Purdue has made this climb in the first place, what did the players keep coming back to every time we would ask them? It was like attention to detail on defense, focus on defense, taking the scout and bringing it to the court. And today, I think that defensive lack of focus showed up in a lot of ways. It showed up in what you're talking about, the dribble penetration that's allowing Wisconsin to get in and score, and it showed up on some of the rotations that weren't there on defense to get someone to contest those 3-pointers better. They were really getting killed by big man 3-pointers, but even then, some of the guys who normally we would expect to be great 3-point shooters for Wisconsin finally got it going.
Yeah, and one thing that I tweeted this at some point in the first half, I thought Wisconsin had great ball movement. Purdue was living in help, and they just kept passing and passing and passing until somebody had a wide open shot. And yeah, you're going to shoot a high efficiency when you're getting wide open shots time and time again. And part of that is because of the talent that Wisconsin has and guys who can get to the rim, and you have to collapse or you have to have another defender come over and help, and that just opened things up. And then once Tanji got the 4-point play, I felt like it just kind of snowballed, and they couldn't miss from that point on.
That was a huge juncture of this game. So we're going to get back to let's first talk about something you brought up to Matt Painter into the game, and something that I definitely felt in real time, which was so there's the flagrant 2 that happens that takes Kamari McGee out of the game. Big play. I think it was the right call by the letter of the law. I tweeted about that, about how it's kind of like targeting in football. Like, it doesn't matter what the guy intends to do. It's more the end result. And especially when there's groin contact, there are rules that they have to follow. And Greg Gard didn't come in and complain about that either. He said, like, hey, they said that's what they had to do. And I think that was probably correct. But there was an opportunity there, and he was the only one out of the game, for Purdue to like make a move, and that move just never happened. And it was early on in this game, it felt like they had a chance to surge. And then right again there late in the first half, it felt like there was a chance to surge. And instead, they're only up 1 at halftime. And I just felt like a second game in a row where there was a chance to open that thing up in the first half, and they couldn't do it. It left them vulnerable to what happened in the second half.
Yeah, I think it was 26 seconds before that groin punch or inadvertent contact to the groin, whatever you want to call it. John Blackwell got a second foul. He's averaging 15-plus points a game and sits for the last 6 minutes and 46 seconds.
Yep.
You feel like, I understand at Michigan, Purdue had some key players who weren't able to be in the game because of foul trouble. It was the opposite here where, Wisconsin is the team that has key players on the bench because of foul trouble or a flagrant 2 ejection, and Purdue goes 4 minutes and 9 seconds to end the half without making a field goal. And just the fact that Purdue was leading by 9 and then went into halftime leading 37-36, it felt like, again, this was a time kind of like against Ohio State and against Michigan earlier this week, where Purdue didn't bury a team when it got, 9+ point lead and just let a team hang around. And then, a team that can play as well as Wisconsin and score at the level that Wisconsin does not just tonight, almost every night, one of the best offenses in the country. You're leaving the door open, and you're going to get burned eventually.
And Blackwell, by the game, finishes the game with 2 fouls. So Purdue never got him in a situation where they was putting him back on the bench. And he was playing a big part in why Braden Smith was so contained in this game. I think Smith finished 2 of 10. It's not a bad game for Braden Smith overall. I mean, 12 assists to 1 turnover. You're going to take that from your point guard any night, but the scoring wasn't there. And as we've talked about in other capacities, when one of those top 3 isn't scoring, they really need a lot from the bench. And they kind of were starting to get it late from Miles Colvin, but it wasn't there enough. But then that stretch to start the second half, this is the first 4 minutes of the second half just encapsulate the game to me. Purdue scores on 6 straight possessions to start the second half. Trey Kaufman scores in like 4 different ways. He's like layups, the hook, the floater, like he's scoring in just every time he touches the ball, he's scoring. 5th time he touches the ball, he kicks it out to Cox over here for a 3. I think it was on this side. And then the next time down, Braden Smith hits a pull-up jumper. Again, one of only 2 baskets he makes all day. 6 straight possessions to start the game, they score. When you're up by 1, you do that, you think, okay, now you're probably pushing like a double-digit lead, right? Nope, they're up by 3 because Wisconsin scored every time it touched the ball except for 1. And then right after that, Tanji hits a 3, draws the foul, gets a 4-point play, and Wisconsin leads the rest of the game. I just thought that epitomized the game, that Purdue could not outscore its defensive lapses today.
Yeah, and I mean, Purdue didn't go away, and it, tried to make up ground with some threes. And you talked about Miles Colvin, who, if there's any silver lining, maybe it's that he found his stroke again in this game late in shots that ended up being kind of inconsequential. But Purdue was chasing, and you need the home crowd behind you. And it felt like at that point, a lot of people had kind of been like, waved their hands and said, Purdue's not playing well enough to win, or at least defensively to win this game. And it was true. Purdue did not defend well enough, could not get stops to complement what it was doing on the offensive end. Because Purdue scores 84 points in Mackey Arena, 99% of the time is going to win that game, and instead loses it by double digits today.
Wisconsin came in here a couple years ago. Who was it? Johnny. I'm forgetting his last name now. I was covering football at the time. Wisconsin comes in here and has a guy who scorched him for 37.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, and today, so John Tonji's had this amazing season, and was a focus of what the Purdue wanted to account for defensively today. At the start of this game, CJ Cox is on him, and I thought it was doing a really good job. I think his first 3 shot attempts of the game were air ball, 3-pointer, air ball. And so it looks like it's really going in Purdue's favor at that time. And from those 3 shots on, he goes 9 of 12 the rest of the game. He gets to the free throw line. He ends up with 32 points, and it was a super efficient second half. I think it was 22 points on 6 of 7 shooting. It was Johnny Davis. I started to say Johnny Davis, and I didn't want to be wrong. I decided to be stupid rather than wrong. 22 points on 6 of 7 shooting. I mean, I hate to use the Painerism, but it just seemed like the most classic example of the Painerism being true, that he got his head up, and he was even talking about it after the game. Like, once you saw him hit a couple shots, and now he's rolling. And again, Purdue, there was a few different matchups that they were trying. Cox is on him early. You got Heidi in there. You've got Jakari Harris in there. At one point, Caleb First was getting on him too much, and that was not working in Purdue's favor in the least. This was just a game where, again, Trey Kaufman had an awesome 30 points. He was super efficient. 30 points on 16 field goal attempts. You're going to take that, again, any day of the week. That usually would be a telltale sign of a Purdue win, but they weren't containing the other team's star enough to, and that was just equalizing. And the rest of the teams, Wisconsin clearly had the advantage today.
Yeah, and Matt Painter was asked Friday about Tanji specifically, and he said, he's one of the best scorers in the Big Ten, and sometimes good players just do that. They get their points, and that was truly the case today. And he got it was padded a little bit by some late free throws, but still, you don't pad a 32-point outing over the course of 40 minutes. So he was spectacular, and you complement that with Max Klesmet. Didn't shoot the ball well from 3, but I think was perfect on 2s and 6 of 7 from the line. And then you get the help for the rest of the way. And I felt like early in this game it was going to be Fletcher Lawyer, who was going to have a big game, and then I think he had 10 points early, and I don't know what he ended up with.
He had 15, but he wasn't even touching the ball that much in the second half. And he had 10 points on his first 3 field goal attempts and a couple of free throws in there, right? So like 4 times he touched the ball or took shots, and he had 10 points. Again, a ratio you're going to take any day of the week. That 20 of 22, I just realized this so 20 of 22 Wisconsin as far as getting the ball in the paint, and Matt Painter was talking after the game about a stat that they track called like positive plays, where like if you get it in the paint and you get a basket, that's a positive play. If you draw a foul, that's a positive play. If you kick it out and get a good shot, that's a positive play. I don't think it even always has to result in a score. And Wisconsin had scored on like 12 of 13 or something like that. You have to watch the video to get the full explanation of it. I didn't completely absorb it before we came out here. But it was a really interesting way of describing what happened. The 20 of 22 that they had today, I'm just now remembering, there was a play in this game where they took a shot late in the foul clock, late in the shot clock. But Trakoff and Rim was the one who came out and closed out on whoever the shooter was. I don't remember who it was. Might have been Tanji. Came out and closed on him. But that left, you've got a small lineup in the game because I don't think First was in the game at that point. So Cam Heidi's your second biggest guy out there. 4 guys from Purdue go up. Wisconsin gets the offensive rebound and gets a 3 off of it. So 20 of 22, but also scoring off of one of the 2, getting a 3 off of one of the 2 misses. Again, that just kind of tells you how Wisconsin came in today and just won this game. Like Wisconsin came in, they were a team that had kind of been hanging back. Well, all this focus has been on, all right, Purdue, can they win 3 straight? Michigan State was undefeated for a long time, and Wisconsin's kind of been hanging back. Well, all of a sudden now, Michigan's 11-2, I think, in first place. Michigan State's 10-3. Michigan plays tomorrow. Michigan State doesn't play again until Purdue plays them on Tuesday. And then now Wisconsin and Purdue are tied with 4 losses in third place. And now Wisconsin is in this mix, and they have not only the direct head-to-head win against Purdue, but they came and did it at Mackey Arena. And now Purdue is going to be – they've got 5 games left and some chasing to do to win this championship.
Yeah, I thought, we talked earlier this year about playing Rutgers at the right time, and now, that might not be as big a deal as it was at the time, but Matt Painter even spoke of it after the game that Purdue was lucky to play at Rutgers early with those 2 dynamic freshmen that they have. It is when you play people, it's also where you play people, and I thought that was why this game was so massive in Purdue's favor. You get Wisconsin once, it's at home. You offset it by getting Michigan State once on Tuesday, and you have to go to East Lansing. But then you drop a home game. Ohio State's not a team that's contending for a title, but you get Ohio State once at home and you lose. And this was the place that nobody could come and win for the last 3 years. And now 2 of your last 4 home games, you've lost, single game conference opponents. That's hard to overcome if you're hoping to win a conference title. But I think the more concerning thing is after the game, when Matt Painter was talking about Purdue was not the tougher team today, kind of lost focus about some things. When you're trying to win a conference championship, and these players have talked about it since the beginning, they've never shied away from it. They've said, we want to win a Big Ten conference championship. That's our first goal. They have the standings every day in their locker room on a video board in there, that something that we learned talking to Trey Kaufman-Wren last week, because he's not a guy who follows it, but he's like, I can't avoid it. I see it every day in the locker room. So now it's just got to be like, you have to forget about a Big Ten title. And if it comes your way, it's going to come with a lot of help. Purdue right now just has to focus on these next 5 games, getting better, and then trying to build some momentum going into postseason.
You always say that box plus minus is a not a perfect stat. You know who led Purdue in box plus minus today? Don't look.
Miles Colvin?
Caleb First, the only positive player, and he fouled out of this game. I think that is a misleading approximation of how this game went, but in other ways it isn't, because Trey Kaufman-Wren scores 30 points this game and he's -5 in the box plus minus, because this team just couldn't stop Wisconsin at all today defensively. They score 30. He has 30 points and Wisconsin ties him on points in the paint. I just think there are numbers in this game that if you had told us the Purdue half of it going into this game, we would have thought maybe this looked like the Michigan game where they ran them out of the gym, a game where they really like beat up on a pretty good opponent, and instead Wisconsin took it to them. And again, I think it goes back to Tuesday. Like Matt Painter's talking in kind of an ominous way about some things he's seeing about this team that are counter to what had been building for this team over a course of several weeks. And we, it probably didn't get taken seriously enough that one of the best offensive teams in the country, but one that's arguably better offensively than Michigan even, is coming in the next game and is just so efficient and so deadly in so many ways, a team that can really exploit those lapses.
Yeah. With 2 7-footers, by the way. So
yeah, and some of those big man threes really killed them, really killed Purdue today. So yeah, huge game Tuesday at East Lansing. We will both be there in person, and follow us along on Boilers Extra. Follow him at Samuel T. King on Twitter. I'm at NW Baird. We'll talk to you later.